Good afternoon and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View. The Celtic channel has been doing Celtic videos for over 13 years now. A couple of days ago I asked Celtic fans, I asked 1,000, well so far it's been 1,596 votes on the question. I asked who is the best Celtic player so far this season. And in this video I'm going to show you the results, and I'm going to talk about the players that had been nominated by myself. I thought these were the players that had a good start to the season, and I'm going to give you the results and the comments that were actually on the poll. So the comment once again was just who is the best Celtic player so far this season. Now, in no particular order, I'm going to go through the players, starting off with number one is Lewis Palma. Lewis Palma has just scored for Honduras, has just played for Honduras, and he's played 3 times for Celtic this season, and he scored 2 goals. He's not got any assists yet. He does play, now it's interesting because he's at Celtic as a left winger, but he can also play as a centre forward and an attacking midfield player, can Lewis Palma. And I've got to admit, he is one of the prospects that I think will do fantastically well this season. Next up, you had to have him in. Obviously, it's Kyogo Furuhashi. Now, Kyogo, he's had an interesting start to the season. He's had 8 appearances. He's had 4 goals and 2 assists. So people will think he's had a quiet start to the season, and it's going to be interesting when you see the results of this poll. Obviously, he can, and the thing about Kyogo also, he plays as a centre forward at Celtic, but he can also play as a left winger and a right winger. It's one of the things that we don't actually think about with Kyogo. He can play on both wings. He is valued at Celtic at only 14 million. I think it would take a lot more than an offer of 14 million to get him away from Celtic, but he was number 2 in the list of who is the best, who's the most improved, who's the best player this season so far at Celtic. Next up was a man that gets all over the pitch at Celtic, and he has done this season, and he runs himself down to the ground, and it is the one and only Dyson Maeda, who's valued at 6 million. Only 6 million. I think these valuations seem to be a bit off, considering Celtic bought him for 1.6 million euros. They now value him at 6 million euros. Dyson obviously is a left winger for Celtic, but he can also play as a centre forward and a second striker, which is his favoured positions, we understand. So he was added to the list, the 25-year-old, purely for the fact that he has had some start to the season when you think that he probably puts more mileage on a pitch than anyone else at Celtic right now. So the next player up, and the question was who is the best Celtic player so far this season, had to be the one that had the chance of leaving Celtic in the summer. He was talked out of it by Brendan Rodgers and the board. There was a £10 million offer came in for the player. A lot of Celtic fans at the time were saying, sell him, take the 10 million and run for the hills, as they say. But we kept him, and I thought, as a central midfield player, he can play central midfield, attacking midfield and defensive midfield. So he can play in the 3 positions. But he has had a good start to the season, and he has scored a few goals this season, but I think it comes to the fact that he's had 8 appearances, he's scored 5 goals, he's scored more goals than Kyogo, and he's had 2 assists. Does that make him a better player than Kyogo? It's going to be interesting when you see the results of the question, and the question was who is the best Celtic player so far this season. And then next up has to be the man of the moment at Celtic. He's the man of the moment in defence. He's the man of the moment that has been pretty much a rock in defence for us. And he got his first cap for Ireland. The last couple of days. He can play at centre back, he can play at left back, and he can also play at left midfield. Yes, the player I'm talking about is Liam Scales. Liam Scales, it was brought to Celtic in a £600,000 deal. And I reckon that Aberdeen were only wanting to pay $650,000 for him. So Celtic weren't going to make any money. But there was that chance. I mean, he did go out on loan to Aberdeen. Had that full season at Aberdeen, came back to Celtic. There was the chance of him going out on loan again to Aberdeen. But Celtic decided that they needed him. And the fact that he could play at centre-back, both sides at centre-back, but his preferred position is left-sided centre-back. And he can also play left midfield also. So that's interesting that he could play the left back, and You know, people are saying we need a left back, get rid of Taylor and get him in there. Can Liam Scales go forward fast enough on the wing? That's one of the questions that really need to be asked. But he was also in there as one of the most improved players. Now let's jump over to some of the comments on the post first of all, before we go to the results of who is the best player so far this season. First up is Alistair. He says, the consistency of Matt for me. What I find from MK Dons, he's an amazing professional ambassador for our club. Matt O'Reilly, JSD.68 says, Matt for me has been consistent from the start of the season, adding goals to his game as well. Les Watts, another one come up with Matt O'Reilly. He's not only the most improved player, i.e. work rate, more goals and more confidence. He's played an important part in a leadership role, helping the rest of the team through some tricky games and moments. The next question is, Scales has been excellent, but O'Reilly definitely puts on a shift. Calmack, for me, says Richard Smith. Calmack is still our best player. Even other teams are trying to man-mark him out the game. Martin Duffy went on to say, O'Reilly is something else, but I still feel he's got more to show. He's done well at keeping the boy. Now let him get on, get him turbocharged and become the next Hans Skelper. Hail, lads and lasses. Ian McKenzie, he said, Scales for me, the others are playing well, but I kind of expect that from them. That's an interesting one, Ian. That's an interesting one, considering Lewis Palmer's just in the door. Jeff Ray says, that was a tough pick. I picked Liam Scales. I always knew O'Reilly was special, but Liam has surprised me this season. And then Diana says, Greg Taylor, according to Google, was the best player performer. Well, there you go. Paul McDuff says, Scales has surprised me the most. There's an interesting one. So Joseph says, Greg Taylor has been outstanding the last 2 seasons, and especially when you see how many people have been crying out for a new left back at Celtic. So all your comments are more than welcome on the channel. Deep Dragon went on to say, Matt by a country mile. And then we would never sell our club is up next. And he said, Maida, because without him playing, we would not be 7 points clear. And he said, that's facts. And we're going to go one of the last replies. There was lots of replies. Sorry if I did not get your reply on the screen at this time. Michael says, no, in fact, we'll go to this one. It says, definitely Palmer. Definitely not Palmer. Take more than a flash. Lol. Matt and Scales, I always thought he kept in the squad and he had the right height and composure in a couple of positions. Michael says, the whole team. The best player, I can't pick one out because the whole team is playing so well. So that is the comments, and now to get to the results. The results, we had over 125 likes, we had lots of comments, and we had, as it stands just now, 1,600 votes. And then the votes are in, the votes are closed. Coming in last is Lewis Palmer and 2%. Can you expect Lewis Palmer to come in? Well, did you expect him to come in last? I mean, he's scored a couple of cracking goals. It's hard to sort of put a standard on where we expect the player to be because he is just in the door and he's only started those 3 games. But he came in at 2%. Next came up was Dyson Maida. That was an interesting one because Dyson has basically run himself into the ground this season. He came in at 5%. Next up, the interesting one was Kyogo Furuhashi. Kyogo Furuhashi only got 7% of the votes. That's an interesting one when you look at the stats and the goals. He's actually not too far behind the goals that Matt O'Reilly scored. So, you mean he has scored a good few goals this season, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to get him into the top spot for this. The next one up, obviously, was Liam Scales. Liam Scales was 24%. Liam Scales on 24%. I thought he might have just nicked it. I thought he has improved immensely this season. But the top place went to Matt O'Reilly with 62% of the votes. Matt O'Reilly got 62% of the votes. Tell me what you think in the comments section. Thank you everyone who wished me a happy birthday yesterday. And you can tell from the video this morning, I was slightly a tad hangover. We will get back to the lives on Sunday. And then there'll be a schedule for the lives for the rest of the week. On that note, have a fantastic day, Celtic fans all around the world.
Lit. Roll up to the party, roll up to the party, roll up to